Hey, my YouTube family. I'm gonna call y'all my heavenly family because we have graduated to heaven, okay? From all the demonic spells and all the crazies that's been happening for the last 3 years against the chosen ones, I think we've earned that title. What y'all think? So, I'm not gonna stay on here long because I got a 846-mile run. They're trying to reschedule it because yesterday was a disaster. I got to this place, can't tell y'all where it's at, but I got here and they was like, oh, this is a live unload. I was like, no, it's not, it's a drop and hook. He's like, nope, it's a live unload. I'm like, it's a drop and hook. He's like, no. And I was like, are you sure? So I had to go call my dispatch, the night dispatch, and they was like, we have it as a drop. So basically I ended up staying in that place about 3 hours. So I couldn't pick up the load. So they're gonna reschedule this load till Thursday. Then I'm gonna take a reset of 34 hours so I can take a break and catch up on some of this homework. But yeah, your girl's been going through it. Anyways, the things that I have learned within the last year and the last year or two is about communication and karma. Excuse my mess. I haven't even had a chance to organize my truck. Karma is something that we all gonna have to go through, whether it's good karma or bad karma. But communication is key. And sometimes when you know what you're trying to say and it don't come out that way because the receiver is not receiving the information. So one thing I've learned is, and I don't always apply it, but you have to hear what the other person is saying too, even if it's wrong or whatever. I kind of got a little sidetracked in being efficient in my communication with my ex because I knew a lot of where he was coming from was a broken place and it was a lot of gaslighting. So it was hard for me to stomach it. So a lot of times I was just over it. I was probably like dismissive, like I don't want to hear it because I already knew the playbook was going to be a repeat, rinse, recycle. So I got to that point where I didn't want to communicate. But this morning I was tested with my dispatcher. He was really testy and a little bit off-putting and dismissive because there was a miscommunication with my logs. I'm trying to explain to him how there's something called a split shift. When you run out of hours, you can have your clock extended so you can get where you got to go. So there was a miscommunication. He's telling me, no, you have to be in sleeper berth for 7 hours first. I said, no, that is incorrect. You have to be in off duty for 2 hours or more. How I know? I didn't tell him that. This is me telling y'all. I was with the last company and that's all they did was split shift because a lot of their loads went over my clock. So he over there getting testy with me. He said, look, just discuss it with logs. And I'm like, in my mind, but dude, you called me, so I'm going to discuss it with you as well because at the end of the day I still got to deal with you as my dispatcher. So we get into a little huffy puffy. I found myself getting a little upset and I was like, my voice wasn't raised, but it was getting elevated. So once I know my voice is getting elevated, you could probably feel my pulse and you could probably feel it like pulsating, like it's about to be lit. Now I'm not saying that I would get unprofessional, that's not my style, but I will let you know how I feel. So what I did was I called logs. They re-verified that I was correct. And it wasn't even about right or wrong. However, where I messed up was I was 2 minutes shy of the 2 hours off duty. I moved the truck a little too soon. So it automatically canceled out me getting the extended time. Not a problem. Now I know, just pay more attention exactly. You know what I'm saying? But that still didn't change the tension that was increased between me and the dispatcher. This is not the first time he's gotten testy with me. I noticed anytime you ask him a question more than once, he's getting a little huffy puffy. So I had to call him back, okay? I wasn't upset. I said, hey, I'm not gonna say his real name. Let's say his name is Tom. I said, hey Tom, can I speak to you? No, I said, hey Tom, do you have a few minutes to talk? He's like, I got a lot of drivers, I said, okay, well, when you have some time, can you please give me a call back? He said, what is this in regard? I said, this is in regard to our last conversation. And he said, oh, is it about your logs? I said, technically, yes, but technically it's more about the conversation and how things went. And then he got quiet. I could tell he was like, oh, well, you know. I said, I just want to clarify some things, that's all. So he's like, well, what do you want to clarify about the logs? I said, well, before we proceed, I just need to know if you have some time to actually talk about it. And he goes, okay, sure. So I said, I know you got a lot on your load. How did I say it? I said, I know you got a lot of drivers and you got a lot on your plate. So I understand sometimes it gets a little, a little stressful. But I want our communication to be based on professionalism and clarity. And I don't like when I feel like when I'm speaking to you and I'm actually talking about something that's important, meaning like the rules, the regulations, anything that's pertaining to my job, and you're getting, a little bit irritated or huffy puffy, now it becomes more personal. And I said, I'm a person, I like clarity and I like professionalism. And, me being from New York, I said, I like to keep it real as well. And the way you spoke to me this morning, it was a little testy. And I said, I'm not saying that it's a problem. However, I don't want it to be a future issue. So if we can speak to each other with some respect, I understand it's going to be days, it's going to be a little confusing, a little harsh. But when I spoke to you earlier this morning, I was explaining to you that the logs, the split shift, you can do 2 hours first off duty. You kept pushing that it has to be a split, it has to be a sleeper berth, 7 hours or 8 hours. I said, that is not true. I told you that this morning. I said the 7 and 8 hours should be done on the back end once you stop driving, but the 2 hours is to get you away from wherever your situation, that bind you're in, to give you more hours on your clock. The reason why I know is because that's all I did with my last job. So when you kept pushing me, telling me, no, that's not true, you were getting real hostile with me. And all I was trying to do is explain the actual correct way that it's supposed to be done. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't really understand the split shift. And see, here goes the honesty. So you're pushing your attitude on me because of a deficiency that you had where you don't know the real rules. Because when I spoke to logs, I didn't tell him that part, but when I spoke to the log lady, she was mad cool. She was like, oh yeah, you did it right. You just messed up where you realized you should have left 2 minutes or 3 minutes after, but you moved that truck 2 minutes too soon. Once you move the truck, the computer kicks in that you're back on duty. So when I was talking to him, he was like, oh, I'm not really in, what he's like, I'm not really, what's that word I'm looking for? It seems like the more you read, the more you forget words. He said, I'm not really fluent with the rules of the split shift, sleeper berth shift. And in my mind, I'm like, but you got a driver that's talking to you, that's letting you know what it is, and you're disputing that person because of your ego. You don't want to admit that you don't know what you're talking about. But I didn't tell him that. I'm just saying this is what happens in communication, where one person may actually be valid and the other person wants to be validated for their error, knowing that they're coming either from a bad place or they just made a mistake. Instead of just humbling themselves and say, you know what, I apologize, what you're saying actually makes sense. It's just that people always want to one up another person. So the person that's correct, they also want to one up you because they know for sure that they're correct. So I told him, I said, it's really not about being right or wrong. It's about how you speak to one another. I said, we're all human. We got feelings. You having a bad day. I had a really horrible day last night while he was sleeping in his bed. I didn't tell him that part, but I'm like, you get to go home and sleep in your bed. I'm still driving this truck when all hell break loose. So at the end of the day, you got to have still a little compassion for what's going on the outside. So I had to bring him back down to reality. I'm still a human being. So after that, I was like, okay, all right, pretend his name is Bill. I was like, all right, Bill, so you got me going here. And you change the mood back to pleasant. You don't keep it tight. So I was like, I made a little joke. I don't remember what I said because I'm silly as hell. But I noticed over the years I got less silly because people was fucking with me all the time, irritating the fuck out of me. And I know I be coming from a good place and they still want to ride your coattail and make you feel like you're a bad person, or you think you're too good, or you think you know too. People always want to put you in a freaking box. And then when you tell them, listen, I ain't that bitch. I'm not about being placed in a box. I can show you all facets of my personality, and you're gonna be like, wow, she's a real ass person. Ain't no fluff, ain't no fake, nothing. So when people realize that about me, all the prejudgments, they're like, man, I really misconceived this person. Man, I really misjudged this person. Man, I really prejudged this person. And it's like, you got that going right. You prejudge people, and what happens? They prove you wrong on both sides, and then they still gotta humble your ass. So that's one thing I learned, is be humble in all dealings with situations. Because even with me knowing the rules, I made a mistake. And I told him, I said, I made a mistake. I messed up yesterday. I knew the rules, but I didn't realize I was 3 minutes before my 2-hour off-duty break. I wasn't supposed to move the truck. But the new tablet that they got, I don't really understand how the clock is. It's mad confusing. So it takes a little more time to read it. And I was rushing last night. I was irritated. So at that point, I did mess up. So it wasn't really about, like I said, it wasn't really about who's right and who's wrong. It's about communicating efficiently. And that's what happens in relationships too. People don't communicate efficiently because they coming from a place of a different intention on the message. The message could be correct, but the intention is, I fucking hate your ass. I resent you. I don't like what you did. I don't like how you look. I don't like how you smell. It could be anything other than what is coming out of their mouth. So now the person that you're giving that message to, they're reading the energy of not the message, but the tone, the attitude, the body language. And that's why I couldn't get with that ex. My ex, every time he talked to me, it was this attitude, body language, stiffness, that gaslighting, narcissism energy. And even if he was saying something that was at this point, okay, yeah, I can see where you're coming from, it was so much resentment that I was just like, you know what, anything that come out your mouth is just at this point, it's fabricated. I don't want to talk to you. And that's where it became like this harsh tension of, I don't like you. You know what I mean? And when you don't like a person, it's like at that point, communication is done. There's nothing left to go talk about. But when you're in a professional situation, or you're in a marriage, or you're in a relationship that you actually want to be in, it's incumbent upon you to learn how to communicate, and communicate well. That's another thing that I want to be talking about, is how can we get along as people? Because people always want to put you in a box, always want to prejudge you. And that's another thing that I want to talk about with karma. And I'm going to get off, it's getting in 12 minutes. Karma. Be careful who you judge. Stop judging people based off of superficial bullshit. Superficial stuff like money, looks, all that bullshit. So my ex, he met me 6 years ago, and I was transitioning, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to move to the South, didn't know which part, and then I met him. My mom had moved to Georgia. He happened to be in Georgia. So I was like, okay, let me move to Georgia because it seems like this could be a good life. So when we started dating, we started getting close. I ended up moving in with him. Kept my place in New York still because, you know, it was transitioning. But I had 2 kids. They were preteens and teenager. And, well, I have 3 kids, but my two kids was the ones that was still, you know, latched at me as far as like taking care of them. So he judged me. You know, single mom. I was divorced, but I was divorced for a long time. Single mom, still trying to figure her life out. I had a degree. I had a trucking career, but I wasn't like driving trucks at the time that he met me. But the judging, the putting me in a box, the whole idea was to put me in a box and make me feel like, well, since I'm making 6 figures, because, you know, he has his own, he owns his truck. I'm making 6 figures. I could put you in a box. You're not at the income bracket that I like, but, you know, you look good. So you're good enough to co-mingle and co-live with, but you're not good enough to marry. At that time, that's how he used to think. So whenever we got into an argument, the first thing that would come up is my money, how much money I got, and how I ain't doing this, and I'm not helping him, and it was crazy. It was crazy how he would judge me and call me a nobody. He said, you only good enough to hang curtains. Basically saying I can't afford anything else in that house. That's how he used to talk to me when we get into arguments. Because he owned a home, he's like, and I'm like, nigga, you paying mortgage payment and struggling with that. The little bit of mortgage you got, You own this house over 20 years and you still don't own it. So just spare. That's why people need to stop judging, because at the end of the day, when you really pull out the skeletons in their effing closet, they be on the same type of time as you or worse. You know what I'm saying? So over the years, he kept pushing that narrative, and it started to affect my self-esteem, and I think that's why I kept trying to prove my worth to him. Like, I could make it, you know, I could do this, that. And then anytime I would speak intellectually, just because I wasn't currently in school, he would look at me crazy like, you think you're so smart. Eventually, when the proof was in the pudding, when I actually started to get my life together, went back into trucking, started a YouTube channel. He didn't even believe I could start a YouTube channel. He's like, yeah, whatever, okay. It's boring. I don't care about YouTube. It's just like, so anything I would say, it was like pouring water on it. Then I went back to school, so I'm studying my master's. For people that don't know my channel, now I'm in the master's program. I only got like 9 more months left. I have a vision. And this vision is going to be multiple streams of income. Think I'm playing, right? So my vision is focused now. So I became focused in 2023. When he was on his slinging ding-a-ling bullshit, I was focused driven. I didn't let nobody come and mess my life up and mess my brain up, because those days were over. And now he's struggling in his business, trying to get, you know, can I borrow $1 mentality, while I'm like, okay, I'm still focused. I still have multiple streams of income now. It may not be to the level I want it right now, but that is the growth and the believing in yourself. And now he over there feeling bad, feeling sorry for himself, want to act like a monster when he feel like it, but then want to play victim. You can't play both roles. You got to pick a side. You're either going to be the villain, or you're going to be the victim, or you're going to stand 10 toes down and be about your business. And this is what karma looks like. When you try to judge people, put people in a box, the same people you judge on the way up is the same people you're going to need help from on the motherfucking way down when you fall. And I'm not wishing bad on him, because I told him I say a prayer for him and all that good stuff, because at the end of the day, I don't want to see bad for him. But this needs to be a lesson, and a lesson for all the people that think they're better than people, or think you can sit up there and put people in a box. Allah will show you the tightest box that he will fit you in. And let that be the message for today. Love you guys. Bye.